They taped a violation notice to my front gate the same morning Grandpa brewed his memorial coffee, black, bitter, like his mood. Name's Eli Turner, mid-40s, freelance editor, current holder of one chipped Navy mug and a missing flag. The paper still smelled of Karen's perfume and toner when things really started unraveling. Ever had your quiet porch turn into a battlefield? Eli Turner paused mid-step on his porch as he spotted a neatly folded notice pinned to his front gate, from the HOA. The coolness of the early September air did little to settle the unease crawling up his spine. He walked slowly down the creaking steps, coffee cup in hand, the warmth of it seeping through his fingers. Behind him, the American flag rippled gently in the morning breeze, catching the light in a way that almost made it glow. Its familiar red, white, and blue had been a fixture on that porch since long before Eli moved back to Greenville Crossing. He didn't need to read the paper to know something was wrong. Still, he unfolded it carefully, like a bad memory. The letterhead was official, Greenville Crossing Homeowners Association in block serif, with a small gold seal that seemed to sneer. He read it twice. Your residence has been found in violation of Neighborhood Regulation 3B, display of political or polarizing symbols. The American flag currently mounted in front of your home must be removed within 48 hours to remain compliant. Eli exhaled slowly, lips pressed tight. The flag? His grandfather's flag? Political? He looked back at the porch, where Grandpa Walter sat in his weathered rocker, blanket tucked around his knees. The chipped USS Independence mug steamed beside him, resting on a crate turntable. Grandpa, Eli called gently, holding up the notice. You're not going to believe this. The old man didn't need to see it. Is it the flag? He asked, voice hoarse but steady. Eli nodded. They say it's too political. We've got 2 days to take it down. Walter snorted. That flag went up after September 11th and hasn't come down since. What kind of HOA nonsense is this? Before Eli could answer, a voice chimed from the sidewalk. Morning, boys. Angela Rayner waved as she walked up, balancing a pie in both hands. Her daughter had already darted ahead, crouched by the sidewalk and scribbling something in chalk. Eli glimpsed a wing, then the tip of an eagle's beak forming in pink and white. Thought I'd bring over a little something, Angela said, nodding toward the pie. I heard about your flag. You too? Eli asked. Angela gave a tight smile. They cited my garden gnome. Said he was satirical in tone. Her eyebrows arched. He's a gnome. Walter let out a low chuckle. Satirical gnomes and offensive flags. What's next? The screen door creaked behind them. Karen Bellwood appeared on the sidewalk, brisk and beige. Always beige. Beige sunhat, beige tracksuit, beige sneakers, the whole ensemble so aggressively neutral it almost made a statement on its own. She smiled, but it never quite reached her eyes. Well, good morning, she chirped, pausing just long enough to be noticed. Lovely weather, isn't it? Angela's smile froze. Eli simply nodded. Karen's gaze drifted to the flag, then back to Eli with a faint wrinkle of disapproval. I do hope everyone is taking time to review the new community guidelines. We're all working so hard to keep Greenville Crossing looking its best. With that, she disappeared down the block, her sneakers barely making a sound. Angela leaned in. She's up to something. You can feel it. Walter's fingers tightened around his mug. She's looking for a fight she doesn't understand. Later that morning, Dottie's diner buzzed softly, filled with the scent of bacon, old carpet, and weary conversation. Eli sat with a few familiar faces, Mr. Bowman from the hardware store, Trish who ran the library events, and Donna Mae, who seemed to know everything before it happened. The talk was quieter than usual, as if the walls themselves might report them. They told me my shutters were visually aggressive, Trish murmured into her coffee. Donna Mae leaned closer. 3 homes cited this week. Karen's running the HOA like it's her personal kingdom. Mr. Bowman shook his head. This isn't what we signed up for. We just wanted some peace and quiet, not tyranny. Eli listened more than he spoke. The seeds of resentment were there, quiet but growing. People were afraid to say too much. But they noticed. That afternoon, a thick envelope slid into every mailbox. An emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for that evening. No agenda. No vote. Just a declaration of new policies, effective immediately. Karen presided at the community center like she was delivering a sermon. Behind her, a screen displayed words like uniformity, order, and visual dignity. There was no room for feedback, just a signature page for attendees to acknowledge receipt. By the end of the hour, lawn decor, outdoor fabrics, flag displays, and porch furniture all fell under a new clause, subject to discretion of the HOA Executive Committee. Grandpa Walter didn't sign. Neither did Eli. That night, the wind picked up. Leaves rustled across the porch. Eli sat in the dark, nursing a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. He thought he heard footsteps once, soft, deliberate, but when he stepped outside with a flashlight, there was nothing. By dawn, the flag was gone. The morning after the flag vanished, Grandpa was already on the porch, arms crossed, staring at the empty pole like it was a crime scene. His blanket had slipped to one side, but he didn't notice. Eli stepped out with 2 mugs and handed one over, careful not to speak right away. The porch felt colder without the flag. Not in temperature, but in tone, something unspoken had shifted. The air held its breath. She took it down herself, Grandpa muttered. Or had one of her little soldiers do it. Eli didn't argue. He'd checked the security light, which somehow hadn't turned on. No one saw anything, and no note was left. Just the pole, bare and still. Angela appeared from next door, bundled in a light jacket, her arms full of paper. Her daughter trailed behind silently, clutching a box of colored chalk, but stopped short when she saw the sidewalk. A faint smear of pink remained from yesterday's eagle. It had been washed clean sometime in the night. I guess chalk's political too now, Angela said. They put up a rule this morning, no unauthorized sidewalk art. Eli's brow furrowed. Since when? Since Karen added it to the bylaws bulletin, she said, handing him a printed copy. She walked the whole street at dawn with a clipboard. Smiled at everyone like she was passing out church programs. Grandpa scoffed. She's running for something. Town council, I'd bet. Angela nodded. That's what I think too. She's trying to prove she can restore order. She lowered her voice. I called someone. A friend. He used to teach civics with me, became a lawyer later. Boone Keller. You ever heard of him? Grandpa blinked in surprise. Boone Keller? I had him in my U.S. history class. 70s. Smart as a whip. Had a mustache that made him look like a state senator at age 16. Angela smiled. He remembers you. Said he owes you a debt or two. Within the hour, the sound of a struggling engine pulled up the driveway. Boone emerged from a dented 1987 Buick with faded navy paint and a worn leather briefcase tucked under one arm. The clasp dangled open, revealing a stack of dog-eared documents. Walter Turner, he said, climbing the porch with a grin. You still owe me a B+ I didn't deserve. Grandpa chuckled. Boone Keller. You still argue your way out of parking tickets? Only when the meter lies, Boone said, shaking Eli's hand next. You must be the grandson. Angela tells me we've got ourselves a flag problem. Eli led him inside, offering coffee and the printed HOA bylaws. Boone spread them out on the table like a battlefield map. Section 4C, no political signage. Section 7, flagpole height. But here, he tapped the paper. Patriotic displays are permitted on federal holidays. Vague enough to drive a truck through. Would September 11th count? Eli asked. Boone nodded. Plenty of precedent. But even better, Pennsylvania statute, Title 68. It says an HOA can't prohibit homeowners from displaying the U.S. flag in a respectful manner. Not unless there's a safety issue. Before Eli could respond, the screen door creaked again. Karen appeared at the edge of the porch without invitation, clipboard in hand. "Well," she said with syrupy cheer, "I hope we're all discussing our shared commitment to community harmony." Boone rose slowly, tucking his hands into his pockets. "Ms. Bellwood, I presume." Karen tilted her head. "And you are?" "Boone Keller. Legal counsel. And a former student of the gentleman you just robbed of a flag." Karen's smile tightened. "We simply enforced our regulations." "Which were amended," Boone said, "in a closed-door meeting, without resident vote, last Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Karen blinked. "I checked the amendment timestamps," Boone continued. "It's technically legal to hold meetings, but not to change governance articles without quorum." Karen's grip on the clipboard stiffened. "I don't think we need to get litigious." Boone didn't blink. "And I think you're right. I'm recommending a peaceful response. A respectful letter requesting reversal. But if that fails," he shrugged, "civil rights litigation under the U.S. Flag Code could be an option." Karen turned without another word. Her footsteps were faster than usual as she walked away. Angela emerged from the kitchen with fresh coffee. "Did I miss something?" "Just a little dance," Boone said, sitting back down. "I'll draft the letter. Soft tone, firm spine. We'll see if diplomacy still works in Greenville Crossing." Later that evening, Boone and Eli worked side by side at the dining table, pulling up archived emails, scanning the HOA's digital footprint, noting dates. That's when they found it, a quiet amendment to the HOA charter, backdated and signed by only 2 members. It changed the criteria for unapproved fixtures to include any display visible from the street not explicitly sanctioned by the HOA. "She rewrote the charter to target the flag," Eli said quietly. Boone closed his briefcase with effort. "If she wants war over a flag, she just might get one." A mysterious pamphlet appears on every front step. "Is your neighbor violating our standards?" The stack was uniform, 1 per home, all printed in black and white, the HOA logo stamped at the top like a seal of judgment. On Eli's porch, Grandpa bent to pick one up and squinted through his reading glasses. His lips moved slowly, then stopped. "Last time someone did that," he murmured, "I was wearing jungle boots." Eli didn't laugh. There wasn't much funny about the flyer. The phrasing was sanitized but unmistakable, an invitation to report each other. No signature, but everyone knew who authorized it. By mid-morning, the neighborhood had gone still. No bikes in the cul-de-sac. No sidewalk chalk. Just wind through the red maples and the rustle of suspicion. Even Dottie's had a quieter hum. Angela showed up with 2 pitchers of lemonade and an old metal cooler of ice. "We're hosting a porch meetup," she said with a tight smile. "You invite, I pour." Boone arrived next, his sleeves rolled up and a clipboard under his arm. His Buick clunked into the drive and gave a wheeze, as if sighing at the effort. "Let's keep it informal. No speeches. Just neighbors talking." One by one, residents wandered over, some cautiously, others gratefully. Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins came first, she with a garden hat and he clutching a laminated photo of their welcome flag that had been flagged. Daniel and Maria, the young couple from the corner, lingered near the steps but stayed quiet, watching. Eli handed out folding chairs while Grandpa adjusted the camcorder now perched on a small tripod near the flagpole. "No sound," he explained, "just visuals. For documentation." Angela laid out papers on a folding table. "I pulled these from public records," she said, voice even. "Karen Bellwood filed porch renovations 2 years ago. No permit listed. She also owes $634 in unpaid property taxes from 2019. There was a beat of silence. Then Mrs. Jenkins exhaled. "They cited my pumpkin last October. Said it wasn't seasonally neutral." Another neighbor chimed in, "They made me take down my hummingbird chimes. Said it attracted pests." Daniel glanced at Maria, uncertain. Boone stood slowly. "I've drafted a petition." It proposes amending the HOA charter to require resident vote before new appearance regulations. No more surprise bylaws. No more clipboard tyranny. He passed around copies. People read in quiet pairs. Maria nudged Daniel and whispered something. He nodded slowly. Eli looked out across the porch and saw something he hadn't seen in weeks: connection. It wasn't joy, exactly. But it was the beginning of shared resistance. Late in the afternoon, as chairs were folded and pitchers emptied, Karen arrived. She didn't step onto the porch. Instead, she posted a new paper on Eli's mailbox, turned briskly, and walked away. Angela pulled it down and read aloud, "Official notice. Unauthorized meetings are a violation of Community Regulation 12B. All public gatherings must be pre-approved by the HOA board." Grandpa chuckled from his rocker. "They're scared," he said. Boone smoothed his copy of the petition. "Good." That evening, Boone filed a formal motion requesting a public hearing in front of the Township HOA board, a legal maneuver designed to bypass internal restrictions. He did it from Eli's living room, using an old laptop with keys that stuck slightly. Angela returned with a box of apple pie slices from Dottie's. They were running a Patriot discount that week for anyone over 60. As they laughed over the crust crumbles and speculated whether Grandpa's camcorder still worked, a silence fell when Angela checked her mail. There was a letter, plain envelope. No return address. She opened it and read it once. Then twice. Her hand trembled slightly as she passed it to Eli. The wording was careful, but the meaning wasn't. The district superintendent strongly advised that Angela avoid activities which may inflame local tensions or be perceived as partisan, given her role as a public educator. Angela gets a warning notice: her teaching job may be at risk due to community unrest linked to Eli. The night before the township hearing, a strange flash lit up the neighborhood. Someone had set off illegal fireworks near Eli's porch. The blast echoed across the quiet streets, jolting Eli from his desk. He sprinted to the porch, heart pounding, the sulfuric scent of smoke already curling through the air. Grandpa was already outside, gripping his cane like a soldier expecting a second wave. The wooden railing, recently restained for fall, now bore black scorch marks and a crack down the center. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains. A car engine revved in the distance and vanished. Eli didn't chase, he knew better. He just stood there, seething in silence, watching the smoke drift into the cool night air like ghosts rising from the flagpole's base. Boone arrived 10 minutes later, hair still wet from the shower, a thick folder under one arm. "If they're pushing this far," he muttered, scanning the damage, "then we're doing something right." The next morning, Grandpa insisted on sitting by the damaged railing, a wool blanket across his knees, watching the sunrise with narrowed eyes. Angela brought over coffee and a box of glazed donuts, her flag pin gleaming stubbornly on her lapel. She looked tired but composed. Eli handed Boone a printed copy of a formal complaint. "Filled out every section," he said. "Good," Boone replied. "I'll attach the photos and get it logged with the township clerk." Around midday, Mr. Jenkins shuffled up with a USB drive in hand. "My old porch camera still works," he said, voice low. "Caught someone loitering near Karen's car about 20 minutes before the fireworks." Boone inserted the drive into his laptop and played the grainy footage. A figure in a hoodie, barely lit by the street lamp, lingered by the car and then darted down the sidewalk, right in the direction of Eli's house. "Think she sent them?" Angela asked. "Can't prove that," Boone said. "But in court, patterns matter." While Boone compiled the footage, Karen wasn't idle. By late afternoon, every mailbox in Greenville Crossing had received a glossy trifold flyer, headlined in bold serif font, "Defending our community spirit, a message from your HOA." The letter warned residents of divisive elements trying to undermine neighborhood harmony. It listed violations, vaguely referenced but unmistakably aimed at Eli, and encouraged vigilance and neighborly reporting. Angela, reading her copy on the porch, shook her head. This woman has a newsletter voice and a tyrant's heart. Eli didn't laugh. Later that day, Angela met with the school principal. She returned somber, pressing her car keys into her palm like a stressed stone. Karen's been emailing the board, she said. Claiming I'm stirring unrest, associating with a resident under investigation. She glanced at Eli. That resident would be you. She's trying to get you fired? He asked, stunned. She's trying to scare me off. Angela's tone flattened. She thinks I'll back down if my job's on the line. Boone was unfazed. Let her keep digging. The deeper the trench, the louder the blast when it caves in. As evening settled, a neighbor walked by wearing a red, white and blue scarf. Another waved silently from across the street, eyes lingering on the charred railing. The community was watching, but which way they would lean remained unclear. At twilight, Eli sat alone on the porch, flipping through the HOA charter for the 100th time. Each clause now felt personal, as though inked not for governance but for control. Then Angela arrived, not with pie or papers this time, but empty-handed. She didn't speak as she walked past him, down toward her garden bed. He followed, curious, and froze. The small American flag she had nestled among the chrysanthemums lay on the ground, trampled. Next to it, half-pinned by a rock, was a sheet of lined notebook paper, scrawled in bold marker, "This ends now." Angela didn't cry. She didn't yell. She bent, folded the flag gently, and slipped the note into her purse. Her hand trembled just once. "I'll bring this to the board," she whispered. The township board room was standing room only, and the air smelled like old coffee, dust, and tension. Eli hesitated at the doorway, adjusting the collar of his only good blazer. Grandpa, beside him, looked straight ahead, the brim of his veteran cap low over his brow. Boone strode in like he'd walked that aisle 100 times, briefcase swinging and leather soles tapping on the tile. The American flags on the walls glimmered faintly under the yellow lights, while a faded 1983 portrait of Mayor Delaney oversaw the gathering like a ghost of bureaucracy past. Angela stood near the front row, her daughter sitting next to her, clutching a small cloth flag to her chest with both hands. Daniel and Maria, stiff in their Sunday best, sat 2 rows behind. Mr. Jenkins leaned heavily on his cane, his wife holding his arm. A township official called the meeting to order. Murmurs quieted. Boone was the first to rise. He approached the podium, cleared his throat and began citing Title 18 of the U.S. Code, Section 700, Protection of the American Flag. No governing body under civil contract, he said, may remove, restrict, or penalize the proper display of the flag on private property. Karen stood abruptly. "Excuse me, but the HOA charter allows regulation of visual harmony in the community," she said, already pulling out a folder thick with papers. Boone didn't flinch. "You changed that charter unilaterally," he said. "In a closed session, without notifying homeowners, in direct violation of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act." The room stirred. Karen fumed. "And what about the unrest? The chalk graffiti, the lawn clutter, the fear children feel walking past that porch?" Angela stood. "Fear?" Her voice cut the room like glass. "You mean the little flag in my flower bed that someone yanked out the night before this hearing?" She reached into her purse and pulled out the folded note. "They left this." Gasps. A few people whispered. A man with a press badge scratched quickly into his notebook. Karen waved her hand. "Anonymous notes? Really?" Angela handed the paper to the township clerk. "You'll find fingerprints." Before Karen could retort, Mr. Jenkins rose slowly. "I have video," he said, voice hoarse but steady. "Of someone walking from Karen's car the night fireworks went off." The footage was cued and displayed on the overhead monitor, grainy, but clear enough. A hooded figure, visible next to Karen's vehicle, lingered longer than coincidence could excuse. Karen's face flushed. She didn't sit. Instead, she leaned toward the microphone. "These people, they've organized against the very rules they agreed to. This isn't about flags. It's about control." Eli stood. The room held its breath. "My name is Eli Turner," he began, voice quieter than Boone's, but firm. I've lived in Greenville Crossing 10 years. I freelance, pay taxes, drink coffee on my porch, and fly a flag that means something to me, and to my grandfather. He turned to the crowd. I didn't start a war. I was handed one, for refusing to take down a symbol of sacrifice. Boone nodded, but didn't speak. Then Grandpa stood. He took his time walking to the podium, each step marked with the tap of his cane. I served with boys who never made it home, he said. Some of them wrote home about their plans: white fences, tree swings, neighborhood grills. The dream was to live somewhere like this. He paused. That flag doesn't belong to one party. Or one woman with a clipboard. It belongs to the people who paid for its meaning with their lives. When he finished, silence held for a beat too long. Then came the applause, slow at first, then steady. Even the township board members looked moved. The chairwoman cleared her throat. The board has heard the arguments, she said. Effective immediately, the HOA's enforcement powers are suspended, pending formal investigation. All citations from the last 30 days are placed under review. A wave of relief passed through Eli, but his eyes were on Karen. She didn't return to her seat. She marched out of the room, phone to her ear, jaw tight, muttering just loud enough for a few to hear. We'll see about that. The next morning, a small flag reappeared on Eli's porch, not his, but a paper one, drawn by Angela's daughter. It flapped gently from a popsicle stick wedged between the slats of the porch railing, its crayon blue sky and red stripes childlike but steady. Grandpa saw it first and nudged Eli's shoulder without a word. The coffee in Eli's mug had gone cold, but the warmth rising in his chest felt fresh. Angela appeared across the street, waving with one hand and balancing a foil-covered tray with the other. Her daughter trailed behind, beaming, a red marker stain on her cheek. Told you we'd paint it back, Angela said. Eli didn't argue. That Saturday, Dottie's Diner posted a handwritten sign over its usual specials board: neighbor's first pancake breakfast, free if you bring a smile. The booths filled with familiar faces and unfamiliar warmth. Boone sat in the corner with his binder open and a yellow legal pad, muttering phrases as he drafted what he called the first of several op-eds. The smell of syrup and ink hung over his table. Outside, Daniel had set up a makeshift folding table with a laptop and a sign: HOA website, help us make it right. He'd volunteered to post actual legal updates, and residents lined up behind him with questions and thumb drives full of scanned citations. Maria passed out coffee from the local cafe, which had started calling its new house roast Unity Blend. Karen tried to make an appearance. She carried thick manila envelopes marked corrective memo, immediate compliance requested. She walked up to porch after porch, only to be met with polite nods or doors that didn't open. Mr. Jenkins gave her a curt no, thank you, and returned to sanding the legs of a wooden flag stand he was building with Eli. Back on the porch, Boone leaned in with a half grin. Let her shuffle paper. We'll be writing headlines soon. But Eli was quiet. When Boone shared the idea, a remembrance picnic on September 11th, in honor of veterans and the right to peace at home, Eli's brow furrowed. I don't know if I have it in me, he said. It's all been so much. Grandpa, sitting nearby with his chipped USS Independence mug, tapped it lightly on the railing. You've done more than enough. But sometimes enough isn't finished. Angela chimed in. The kids need something good. So do the grown-ups. That night, Eli found himself sitting in the dim light of his kitchen, pen hovering over the permit form Boone had left on the table. The line for official host was blank. He signed it. The next morning, Boone slid the application under the township office door, complete with event layout and liability waivers. But before the day was out, another paper arrived, this one in a formal envelope with a return address labeled Bellwood and Associates. Karen had filed a counterclaim. It named both Eli and Boone. The charge: public incitement and aggravation of communal tension under HOA jurisdiction. The picnic tables were set, the flags planted, and the grill was sizzling, but Karen was nowhere to be seen. A faint breeze carried the smell of charcoal and sweet relish across Greenville Park. Children in red white blue shirts darted between folding chairs while Angela arranged cups beside a tub of lemonade. Near the oak tree, a banner waved gently, "In memory, in unity." Eli adjusted his collar, wishing someone else's name were on the permit. Over 40 neighbors had come. Some brought folding chairs, others brought memories. Mr. Jenkins sat beside a retired sergeant in a wheelchair. Maria handed out paper fans, while Daniel walked the perimeter with a clipboard. Angela's daughter passed out hand-colored flags she'd spent the week drawing, one for every guest. Boone, standing with one foot propped on the lowest step of the pavilion, tapped the microphone. "Friends," he began, his voice carrying over the hum of chatter, "this gathering isn't just about food and flags. It's about respect, for history, for each other, and for the truth. HOA rules don't outrank decency. Or the law." The crowd murmured in agreement, some clapping softly. Then a black sedan pulled into the gravel lot. Karen emerged, flanked by a tall man in a dark blazer carrying a slim briefcase. Her heels clicked across the lawn as she approached. The noise quieted like someone had turned down the radio. "This event is unauthorized," Karen announced, waving a printed document. "As of this morning, a revised HOA ordinance bans public political gatherings on shared property. You are in violation." Boone didn't flinch. He stepped forward with a thin folder and handed it to the man beside Karen. "That's odd," he said. "Because as of yesterday afternoon, the township formally suspended the HOA's enforcement authority until an independent audit is complete." Murmurs turned to gasps. Karen's lawyer flipped pages. Karen's lips thinned. "Also," Boone continued, gesturing toward Eli, "Mr. Turner would like to share a few documents." Eli, hesitant but steady, held up several photocopies stapled together. "These are scans of expense reports submitted by the HOA in the last year. You'll see line items, roofing repairs, deck staining, landscaping, all for one address." He paused. "Karen Bellwoods." A silence fell like dusk. Karen stepped forward, jaw clenched. "Those were authorized maintenance items." Boone raised an eyebrow. "None of which were reviewed or approved by the HOA board. And some of which," he pointed to a line marked "emergency drainage repair," "correspond to a landscaping bill from your brother-in-law's business." From the edge of the group, two former board members looked at each other, then quietly stepped away from Karen's side. Karen's eyes darted, searching for allies. Angela stepped forward and whispered to her daughter, who offered Karen a small, hand-colored flag. Karen didn't take it. Then she screamed, "You'll all regret this," and turned on her heel. As the black sedan door slammed shut, Grandpa leaned toward Eli with a half-smile. "She just declared surrender and didn't even know it." The new flag rose slowly over the porch, catching the breeze like a quiet promise kept. Eli tightened the cord on the pulley, letting the fabric climb into the pale October sky. The cotton snapped gently in the wind, fresh against the backdrop of red-gold maples. Pumpkins lined his neighbor's steps, and a school bus rumbled 2 blocks away. Grandpa sat nearby, cane across his knees, watching with a glint in his eye. "They can tear it down, but we'll raise it again," he murmured. Angela crossed the lawn carrying 2 steaming mugs. "Hot cider," she said. "And good news." Eli took the cup, eyebrows raised. "The township released the full report this morning," she said, easing into the rocking chair. Karen altered bylaws without a quorum, redirected HOA funds, and even filed permits under her maiden name. "The paper trail's clean, well, messy, but enough." He let out a breath. "She gone?" Angela nodded. "Moved out sometime last night. For sale signs up. Quiet exit, no goodbyes." Boone had mentioned there wouldn't be charges, just enough embarrassment to keep her out of any leadership role for years. Besides, he was busy now, asked to advise 2 other neighborhoods already on how to form fairer HOAs. He'd left that morning, honking the horn of his Buick with a new bumper sticker slapped on the back, "Liberty. Porch by porch." The porch felt still. No surveillance cameras. No flyers. No meetings behind closed doors. Just wind through the trees and the sound of neighborhood kids laughing again down the street. Angela leaned toward him. The HOA's being restructured. Full resident voting. And, they want you on the charter committee. Eli blinked. Me? You earned it, she said. But if you're too tired. I am, he said simply. Then added, but nominate you. Angela laughed softly. Already accepted. Grandpa stood with effort and began removing the old camcorder he'd left pointed at the flagpole. We've got all the evidence we'll ever need, he said, winding up the cord. From across the street, Mr. Jenkins waved from his garden, the spray from his newly installed fountain catching the sun in tiny rainbows. A small flag fluttered beside it. Maria and Daniel were trimming hedges together, now comfortable as part of the community's rhythm. Angela turned toward Eli, her voice warm. Oh, school board dropped everything. Principal even apologized in person. I got promoted. He raised an eyebrow. Department head, she smiled. American history. As the three of them settled into quiet, a sudden patter of footsteps broke across the walkway. Angela's daughter raced up, holding a crumpled flyer in her hand. Mom says they want to feature our neighborhood in the paper. That October morning, a quiet flag fluttered back into place, not as protest, but as promise. What began with a single notice on a porch grew into a movement of neighbors remembering what it means to stand together. In the end, it wasn't anger or argument that won the day, but unity, patience, and one worn cane tapping steadily toward justice. When power loses its way, it's often the smallest front porches that light the path home. And perhaps, somewhere not far from here, another community is ready to raise its own flag, one stitched with courage, not control.